The Galactic Council had written it into their war doctrine centuries ago. When retreat is necessary, the young are forfeit. It was cold mathematics, they said. Resources spent retrieving cubs from hot zones meant fewer soldiers survived. The equation was simple, rational, and universally accepted. Every species agreed. Every species except one. Commander Mason Red stood in the command center of the UNSC Defiant, watching the battlefield feeds with mounting horror. The Krill offensive had broken through the Coalition's third defensive line on Outpost Varan 9. Across his screens, alien forces executed their retreat protocols with mechanical precision. The Thaxian legions withdrew in perfect formation. The Corveshi warships pulled back to regroup, and everywhere in the abandoned trenches and bombed-out shelters the young ones remained. Thaxian hatchlings huddled in collapsing bunkers. Corveshi spawn crawled through rubble, calling for parents who would never return. Even the proud Zenthari had left their cubs behind, adhering to the doctrine that had governed galactic warfare for 10,000 years. "Sir," Lieutenant Chen's voice cracked, "the Council is ordering full retreat. All Coalition forces are pulling back to the jump point." Mason's jaw tightened. On-screen Delta 7, a cluster of Thaxian hatchlings, no more than 3 solar cycles old, huddled together as plasma fire crept closer to their position. He thought of his daughter back on Earth, barely older than these children. He thought of bedtime stories and scraped knees in the universal language of a child's fear. "Prep the evacuation shuttles," Mason said quietly. "Sir?" Chen turned, confusion written across his face. "The Council directive." "I heard the directive, Lieutenant." Mason's voice was steel wrapped in ice. "Now hear mine. We're not leaving them." The command center fell silent. 12 officers stared at him, understanding exactly what he was ordering. A violation of galactic military law. A breach of the very foundations of Coalition warfare. Courts-martial would be the least of their concerns. Mason brought up the tactical display. "Chen, coordinate with engineering. I want every shuttle, every transport, every piece of equipment that can carry passengers stripped and ready. Medical teams on standby. Assume trauma protocols for multiple species." He turned to his communications officer. "Harris, broadcast on all Coalition frequencies. Tell them we're implementing Protocol Shepard." "Sir?" Harris hesitated. "There is no Protocol Shepard. There is now." The Defiant broke formation, diving back toward Varan 9 while every other Coalition ship burned for the safety of deep space. Mason deployed his shuttles like a net, each one vectoring toward concentrations of young life signs. His pilots flew through fire and shrapnel, landing in hell itself to scoop up the abandoned. The first shuttle returned carrying 17 Thaxian hatchlings, their crystalline skin scorched and their eyes wide with terror and confusion. The second brought Corveshi spawn, still calling for hive mothers who had fled. A third carried a single Zenthari cub, badly injured, clutching a torn piece of cloth that smelled like her pack. Mason met each shuttle personally. He didn't speak their languages, but he learned quickly that compassion needed no translation. A gentle hand on a trembling head, a soft blanket, water, food, safety, the universal language of care that every species understood, even if their doctrines had forgotten it. "Commander Red." The voice over the comm was cold with authority. "This is Admiral Kevnash of the Coalition Command. You are ordered to cease your unauthorized operation and retreat immediately." Mason looked at the Thaxian hatchling in the medical bay before him, its breathing finally steady under the oxygen hood. "Negative, Admiral. Operation ongoing. You are violating 10 millennia of established military protocol. Then your protocols are wrong." The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Kevnash spoke again, his voice different somehow, quieter. "You will stand trial for this." "I know," Mason replied. "Send more shuttles and I'll stand trial with honors." By the time the Krill advance forced the Defiant to retreat, Mason's crew had evacuated 247 young ones from 12 different species. The ship's corridors rang with chirps, whistles, roars, and cries, a cacophony of life that should have died on that battlefield. The court-martial lasted 3 days. Representatives from every Coalition species sat in judgment, their faces ranging from outrage to carefully controlled neutrality. Mason stood alone in the defendant's circle, his crew forbidden from sharing his fate. The prosecutor, a Thaxian matriarch, presented the charges with clinical precision. Violation of military orders. breach of galactic warfare conventions, endangerment of coalition forces. The list went on, then came the defense. Mason hadn't prepared one, but the doors to the tribunal chamber opened and they filed in. 247 young ones grown now into adolescents and adults. They came from a dozen worlds, spoke in a dozen tongues, but their message was singular. Among them walked Sira, a Xanthari cub Mason had personally carried from a collapsed medical station. She had grown tall and proud, wearing the ceremonial marks of a warrior. She spoke in clear standard, learned from the humans who had saved her. The council asks what Commander Red's crime was, Sira said, her voice carrying through the chamber. I will tell you. His crime was seeing us as worthy of saving when our own people did not. His crime was teaching the galaxy that the young are not acceptable losses. His crime was being human. She stepped forward, and 246 others stepped with her. We are the saved. We are the ones your protocols deemed expendable. And we stand here to say the only crime committed on Varan 9 was that it took humans to show us our own shame. The tribunal's verdict came swiftly. All charges dismissed. More than that, Protocol Shepard was ratified into coalition law within a solar cycle. Every species now trained evacuation teams. Every military ship carried specialized equipment for retrieving the young from combat zones. The galaxy had learned what humanity had always known. A civilization is measured not by how it treats its warriors, but by how it protects those who cannot protect themselves. Mason retired from military service 3 years later. He spent his remaining decades training evacuation specialists across 100 worlds. And every year on the anniversary of Varan 9, he received messages, 247 of them, from every corner of the galaxy. From doctors, engineers, artists, and leaders. From the ones who should have died but lived instead. From the ones humanity had refused to abandon. Among those messages, one always came first from Sira, now a council member herself, who had dedicated her life to ensuring no child of any species would ever be left behind again. Her message was always the same, 3 words in imperfect English that meant everything. Thank you, Father.